Welcome to I Hate It Here, the podcast for HR and people professionals, making the hardest job in the world just a little bit easier. I'm Hiba Youssef.
As an L&D person and as an L&D team, you're really there to advocate for the employee. You're there to dig into what they really need, not just what the leaders think they need. That's going around and talking to people and asking people what they're missing, what they're confused about. And then once you get more of that information, then you put that in your tool belt. And when it comes to building the trust with the rest of the organization, you can really start to build that with storytelling, sharing your goals, sharing your wins, and really getting people aligned around what you're trying to do.
Let's be honest, HR doesn't have a data problem. It has a what do we actually do with this problem? Quantum Workplace helps leaders unlock talent insights that are often siloed, connecting engagement, performance, and development into a single clear view of your workforce. Because clarity leads to better decisions and better teams. Visit quantumworkplace.com to learn more. Another week, another pod, and probably another HR dilemma for you to solve. I'm Hiba, your host and resident hater, and I'm back with another episode to hopefully keep you sane as we navigate these chaotic times. This season, we're going all in on new ideas, fresh thinking, and people who are bold enough to say the quiet parts out loud. And today's guest, she says all the quiet parts out loud. Hanan Sahourieh. I did it right? Hell yeah.
Love that.
Hanan Sahourieh is a learning strategist, author of Everyone Be Cool, and someone who has made it her mission to tell organizations the uncomfortable truth about why their L&D keeps failing. And spoiler alert, it's probably not the learning team's fault. She is out here cutting through the corporate noise, calling out ego-driven dysfunction, and actually giving people roadmaps that work. I have been wanting to have this conversation with her for so long because, honestly, L&D is one of those functions that gets done dirty constantly. It's underfunded, it's overcomplicated, and blamed for problems it genuinely didn't create. And we're going to get into all of that today. Hanan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
We have been waiting to make this happen for so long. I have your book. It is somewhere in this room. I have stacks of books around me, by the way, but it is here. I have it. You sent it to me, so thank you.
I did. I slid in your DMs. I'm like, hey, girl, you like
It,
books?
it was called Everyone Be Cool. I was like, everybody be cool. I was like, I'm in. Give me the book. I love it. I mean, it's a fun time. Like, you wrote this amazing book. We're going to get into that too. But before I do, I've been asking every guest this season so far, what's something new you want to learn this year?
Such a good question. Non-attachment. So
Okay.
basically, the theory of not necessarily being complacent or giving up, but just having that space between your thoughts and the thinker and the person, and just not being so attached to outcomes, and just having more of that clarity and kind of space there. So
I need
you
to
know
look that up because I think I need to learn that too.
Yeah, I think it might be a Buddhist concept, but it's super chill, and I would love to get more into it.
Yeah, I feel too attached to things. So like
Mhm.
maybe I also joke that I'm like a very stubborn person. So I'm like, maybe this is my stubborn person coming out where I am like, I'm so attached to like me being right, but maybe I could learn to let that go. I'm going to look this up after the episode because
Mhm.
I think I could benefit from some of that in like my daily meditation.
Absolutely. It's all
You know,
about getting that inner peace and that distance.
I need it in this job.
Mhm. Mhm. In this life.
In this life, honestly, in this job and in this life, I need some non-attachment. Okay, so you heard it here first. I'm gonna go practice that, and then next season, Henan's gonna come back, and we're gonna teach everybody all the things we learned
We're
about
gonna be
non-attachment.
super zen and just
We're
we're
gonna
gonna
fig-
nail it.
we're gonna figure it out. I can't
Mhm.
I can't wait for that. Okay, so L&D. First of all, did you know I started my career in L&D?
I
Fun
did
fact.
not know that.
Fun fact. So
That
I
is
I
fun.
think it is the origin story of all origin stories because my dad was a professor, my brother also a
Mm.
professor, my sister also has her PhD. In case you're wondering, I am in the half of the family that does not, and I feel a way about that every day. It's okay. I've gone through it, talked about it in therapy. But we are just like lifelong learners in my family. It has always been just a passion point of like everyone in my family to like learn something, talk about the thing we learned, grill each other on why we have a certain belief. And so when I started my HR career in L&D, I was like, oh, this makes sense. Like this is the stuff I love. Like I get to talk to people about how they're trying to learn and grow. Like what does our global learning look like? Really interesting stuff. But I mean, like, L&D is getting a lot of heat these days because the AI, whatever hellscape we're currently in with AI, everyone's like, "We need to retrain everybody, and L&D is now even more important than it's ever been." And I'm like, "Well, it was kinda always important." But you've worked with a lot of different organizations, so when you walk into an organization and you see L&D is a mess, what's the first thing you usually notice?
So L&D is more kind of like a symptom rather than the problem. So when I walk into an organization, I'm assessing, what's the culture, what's the communication, what's the vibe, what is leadership like, how are decisions made, are we measuring success in a way that is understandable to everybody?
Yeah.
Uh, do
Usually not.
people No, never. It's just like, "Just do it,
Just
and
do
I'll
it.
tell you if I hate it. If
Yeah.
I hate it, I'm gonna pull you into a room, you're gonna come out crying and feeling bad about yourself as a person, but you won't have any tangible feedback,
Yeah.
and hopefully that'll result in something that'll make, the 40 stakeholders all aligned and happy." Um and, the feedback is really important. Is it smart, specific, measurable, actionable, all those things? Rather than, you need to be more strategic. You need to have more executive presence. You need to be more like me. You need to be more a leader who leads. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, that's great, but if you don't give feedback that somebody could actually act on, then you're just kind of wearing a person down in their personhood, and you're taking away their confidence. So I look at all these things when I come into an organization because it all matters. It's not just, okay, we can't communicate, we don't know how to measure things, but L&D needs to go off and be successful. It's all connected.
Yeah, it's always so funny when people are like, "But like the L&D team can fix that," or like, "Would a training fix that?" And I'm like, "If your gut is to fix a problem with a training, like you've missed the actual assessing the problem completely." Like I love that you call out culture and communication and even how decisions are made because how many organizations do you even know of that have a documented path as to how a decision gets made? We don't even have
Mhm.
it documented at work week. It's actually one of the things that I talk about all the time because I'm like, it would be so easy for our employees if we like had a decision matrix. And people are like,
Mhm.
oh, but it's like there's a lot more nuance to that than just like who makes what decision. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, shouldn't it be kind of clear who gets final say? Otherwise, then we're in a situation where it's like you versus me, and it's not really good. So I love that you call that out because all of these things definitely contribute to an organization's like culture. And so often people try to attack these problems with training and they completely miss the point entirely. So, but you wrote a whole book. We talked about it. Everybody be cool. What is the story behind the title? And who do you think needs to hear Everybody Be Cool the most?
Everybody.
Everybody be cool.
But only people that are looking to make a change. Like, if you
Mm,
think you're great and the problem's everybody else, then maybe don't waste your time. Just read a book about how amazing you are. Like, listen to a podcast about, being more amazing. But I really think it's something that everybody could benefit from. And the reason that I wrote it was I found myself working in my 20-year career with a lot of emotionally dysregulated people. Um, yeah, that was a big part of it, and I didn't really anticipate that. I just always thought it would be more about the work, and then I found it was more about the human beings that you found yourself interacting with. Who was your manager? Who was the leadership?
Yeah.
Who your coworkers were? And if they weren't able to communicate in a certain way, or they were going through something and kind of taking it out on the people around them, just what a big impact they had on them,
Mm,
on everybody around them in their life. So I just I realized like how emotional and confusing the workplace would be. And, my background, I started out as a technical writer. So nothing better than a good old fashioned user manual. So wanted to kind of create that for somebody that came into the workplace, maybe didn't have, a mom or dad who was like, "Hey, sonny or daughter, I'm going to tell you exactly how it was." So they're learning on their own. And I really wanted to apply the lessons that I saw specifically in leadership training, but for everybody. Because in my roles, I saw amazing leadership training, which included introspection and journaling and self awareness and, time to reflect. And I really wanted everyone to have access to that, not just
yeah.
people who were deemed, special or leadership material. And, um, I always joked about writing a book, but I found myself having the time and the space to do it. And I'm like, all right, here we go. Let's do it. Let's get a system that people can apply, that even if they don't have an L&D program at their work, even if they're not handpicked, they can handpick themselves and
Yeah.
develop themselves.
I love that because, like, coaching and development it's not really democratized at organizations. It's almost always given to the select few, or who has been deemed like a high performer or like most
Mhm.
critical to the business. And you and I both know like a lot of those decisions are like rooted in bias sometimes, where somebody
100%.
sees themselves in someone else and says they are a high performer, so they should get access to other things. So I love that you put it in a book for everyone to have access to it, because I think it's a real challenge a lot of us are facing. There's this funny meme my coworker and I keep sending to each other where it's like, I didn't realize how much of work was just trying to control your emotions. It's like less
Mm,
about getting work done and more about trying to control it. So, like, when you said you were working with a lot of emotionally dysregulated people, like, I think everyone in HR has worked with so many people like that. And then we as HR have to come in and be, the ones that are calm, cool, collected. And everybody else kind of gets to misbehave. Like, I don't get to be emotionally dysregulated in the workplace. So, like,
mhm,
why should anyone get to do that? Why should anyone behave as such? So it's really interesting that you bring that up, because a lot of work, I mean, it's about getting the work done, but I also think it's about managing your emotions in real time. And I also love that you called out the confusing it could be, because my parents, like, are first generation immigrants. My mom and did not work. My dad was a college professor, so his concept of like corporate America was very different. My siblings are
mhm,
of a different generation, so even their advice is somewhat less relevant to me at times and how I would pursue things. And so I didn't have that playbook in front of me about like how to navigate really confusing situations in the workplace where someone got a promotion over me even though I thought I did better work than them, or there's a huge pay discrepancy even though we were doing the same work. Like, a lot of that stuff is really confusing in the workplace. So I love that that's incorporated in the book too. And I'll manifest it for myself. I would also love to write a book. So maybe if I say it enough times, all of you can hold me accountable and I can finally do it.
you're gonna do it, and it's gonna be amazing.
You heard it here first. Maybe I probably have mentioned it on like a million podcasts actually, but you heard it here first and for real. 2026 is my year. Um, Yeah, no. Oh, make it happen this year. It has to. I mean,
You
the world
have
feels
to.
like it's gonna end on any given day, so, like, I really feel like it should happen.
Time is of the essence.
I'm making jokes, but it is a very serious time in this timeline, and I think maybe work is gonna change so much so often. You often talk about too many cooks in the kitchen, which I feel in my soul.
Mhm.
Why do cross-functional leaders keep over engineering something that isn't theirs to run?
Yeah. I think it goes back to, the power struggles and the dynamics that you'll
Ugh.
find in a lot of organizations, which, as kind of an observant person who's trying to figure out the workplace really always trips me out. I was like, "What is happening?" All I know is people go to these meetings and they come back sad, and then all
They're
this is
crying.
happening. Yeah,
What
and you
happened?
can feel it. You could feel it, like, this person's deflated, and now this group is elevated. So, yeah, it depends on the organization, but I feel like I've been in an organization where, I liken it to kind of Game of Thrones, and, there could be some, red wedding meetings where, things happen and people take over things, and everybody wants to show how leadery they can be and
Mhm.
how, they could say, well, it needs to be this and we're so behind, and L&D needs to do XYZ. And I think it might be because learning is such a universal thing,
Mm.
and people think it's intuitive, like, hey, I went to college, I know how to learn, and they just need to do XYZ. But it's very different in the workplace, and I don't feel like learning and development gets, the proper respect or the proper, you know, curiosity from stakeholders. It's more like, do this and you need to do it, very prescriptive. And
Yeah.
we talk a lot in L&D about not wanting to be order takers. But when you're in a position where you're wanting to make stakeholders happy, it's easier said than done. You want to kind of jump in, okay, they said we need to do this. Let's go ahead and churn this out. And so it really becomes trying to satisfy the stakeholders and trying to prove yourself rather than the stakeholders understanding their role more as, okay, here's where we give feedback, not just you kind of give feedback on everything. So
Yeah.
that's, I feel like, where people don't really understand their roles in the process and it gets very confused.
Yeah. Nothing grinds my gears harder than someone being like, can I give you like a little bit of feedback about how I would do this HR process different? And I'm like, can you do HR for almost 2 decades and then come tell me? Like, nothing like, listen, I'm also a very collaborative person. I graciously listen to the person, but there is this, like, general, I think I could do HR better than the HR person, and I don't know if it's just HR, maybe, like, marketing gets that too, or, like,
Yeah.
comms gets it too. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
it's probably that power struggle is so real. Like, when you said the word power struggle, all I could think of was, like, Star Wars. I'm on a
Hmm.
real Star Wars kick these days, but I'm just like, the power the power struggle at work is so hard to watch too because I'm, like, so uninterested in that game,
Same.
and I'm just
Same.
I have to, like, actively remind myself to, like, observe and be quiet because I'm just like,
Hmm.
"Ugh, I wouldn't do it that way," right? Like, it's such an
Hmm.
interesting dynamic thing, but there is a real there's I've witnessed so many power struggles between
Hmm.
C-suites yelling at each other to executives trying to, go behind other executives' backs and do things, like, the power struggle is very real. I just think people need to understand it's better to work together than against each other. The against each other never helps.
Yeah, I'm not a person that ever comes into a space and is like, I want to dominate and
Yeah,
like that's just not my personality. And especially, and this is another reason why I wanted to write the book. Coming into the workplace, my first job as a technical writer out of college, I was just so confused and scared, and I
yeah,
didn't understand what was happening. And every workplace is so different, that just yeah, that kind of very, like, aggressive, dominant personality is just doesn't make sense to me. So I understand, you have to be a certain way to get things done, but, you know, it there's so many different types of people in the workplace that, there's the people that are more introverted, and they have things to say, and they have, um, good perspectives that's really why I love learning and development because it caters to everybody's different style and it finds the benefit in everybody. Like, with mentoring, like there's reverse mentoring where people with a lot of experience can learn from people with less experience.
yeah.
And I think if people are in leadership roles, maybe they're used to being very decisive and very aggressive, but there is really a beauty in curiosity and active listening. And I
Yeah.
think that's how you really tap into all the different types of people in your organization instead of just, assuming that only the leaders have that knowledge and, only the loudest voice in the room is the most accurate. And that
Yeah.
really grinds my gears when people think that, if I say something in a meeting and, I'm doing like corporate theatrics the
Yeah.
best, that I'm
Yeah.
I'm a high performer, but it could be the person that is taking everything in and processing and sends an email later that has something really thoughtful to say, rather than just the person in the moment who's going to make a big scene.
Yeah. That I mean, that brings me to my next question all about ego, because in that power struggle, a lot of times the loudest voice, like ego comes up quite a bit in my work, in your work. Like, how do you practically push back on a senior leader when they think they know better than the learning team?
Yeah, I think, leaders love data. So anytime you have data or research or
Yeah.
you have something that's prepared and you're not just saying, well, no, I don't agree with you or your perspective is wrong. I think you can kind of work around the ego in
Yep.
that way if
Yep.
you have something that's really well thought out and strategic. And then I think, having those clear roles and boundaries also really helps where um, the stakeholders know that their role is more from their lens and it's
Yeah.
more here's where I get to provide feedback rather than I'm providing feedback on every word, every, interaction, every PowerPoint slide that we have. And lastly, I would say having a sponsor or having somebody that
Mm.
has your back. And
Yeah.
that's also something I didn't realize until, later in my career, how important that is
Yeah.
to have somebody who's speaking up for you when you're not in the room, who's encouraging you, taking you under their wing, and really uplifting your voice so that you're not just this lone kind of wolf in the wild saying, I don't agree because da 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 da. Da." If you have somebody that's saying, okay, well, they're really gifted and we should listen to them, that makes all the difference because then you have somebody kind of co signing that
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah. Ego is just like such a nasty beast. We have a work week value that's empathy, not ego, which I always love. And I love when employees say it's their favorite because I'm like, great. Because like ego can be so hard to manage, especially if you have like these big time execs who have spent 20, 40, 30 years in the business and think they know better than you, seemingly younger, more or less experienced person. So I love that you
Mhm,
bring up data, the clear roles, and like having an advocate. Like some of my biggest
mhm,
battles have not been won by me charging in their head first. They've been won by me having someone to co-sign the thing that I'm saying. And
100%.
it gets there's a joke that I always make where people are like, "What's the best business book you've read?" And I'm like, "The Art of War." And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Okay, it's a joke. It's a joke." That it is a joke just for this podcast. But I'm just saying, like, if you're thinking about how work gets done, it's almost like we have to, just like you said, be so observant of everything and everyone. And the
Mhm,
tactics have to change based on the person you're having. So when I do have a more senior leader push back on me on thinking that they know better, I always approach it from like the curiosity standpoint. And sometimes I will say this, I'm not proud of it, I'll stroke their ego. Especially like I'm like, You know what? You win sometimes you win more battles with honey than" what's that saying? I'm sorry, I'm so bad at sayings. I don't know why I'm
win
trying it.
win more with honey than
You catch
sugar.
more you catch more honey with flies?
Catch
Wow,
more catch more
hun
flies with
flies
honey.
catch more flies with there we go. Also, a long running bit is that I never know any saying. Like, we never said them growing up, so I just now
Yeah,
as an adult, try them, and I'm like, "I don't understand what I'm even saying."
I know.
But,
Same.
there are times where, like, if I know someone has a big ego and a big idea about something, I will stroke the hell out of that ego, approach it from, like, a curiosity standpoint, and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. Let me show you the data that actually says something a little different." And it's like, then
Mhm.
you bring them along for the ride with you versus pushing back on someone saying, like, "No, you're wrong." It's like you have to know the art of negotiation in the workplace too, something we're not taught ever anywhere.
100%. Yeah, and I feel like ego, it's not all bad, right? It serves a purpose to a point. But then, when it gets too much, that's when it can be a hindrance. And, I value people who accomplish a lot of things, but can, kind of put that ego in check. But to your point of, you know, approaching it with curiosity and acknowledging the ego. I think that's fine because everybody just wants to be acknowledged, right? We're
Oh
all
my
just,
gosh, yes.
little children and
Creatures.
little souls that grew up and put on our little suits and are trying to do our thing and just want, to be patted on the head and told we're special. I'll tell everybody's special. So, yes, you're special, Mr. or Miss Leader, individual contributor. Everybody has value. So there's nothing wrong with kind of acknowledging everybody's importance. So yeah, I think that's fine. However you can get it done, however you can um, get your point across in a way that invites people in rather than me versus you, us together in a win-win kind of space is
Yeah.
really where the magic happens.
Yeah, I'm just like, positive manipulation is what I call it sometimes. It's manipulation, but for good, not for evil, to be clear. I honestly don't even think that's a real thing. Most HR tools give you dashboards full of data, but not a lot of direction. Quantum Workplace helps HR and people leaders connect the dots between engagement, performance, and development, so insights don't live in silos and decisions aren't made in the dark. The outcome? More confident leaders, stronger connections, and high performing teams that support real business results, not just reports that sit untouched. If you're ready to move from collecting data to leading with it, check out Quantum Workplace at quantumworkplace.com. This whole season, I've been talking to people about, like, new, fresh ideas. The new
Hmm.
is, like, the theme even of the newsletter. I'm just, like, thinking things out loud in the newsletter every week. What's, like, a new idea or approach in L&D right now that you think more people should be paying attention to?
So I think L&D, there's always been so many ideas in L&D. That's what I love. It's such a spectrum.
Yeah.
But I think the shift that I'm seeing now, especially, is a big shift in 2020 and COVID and e-learning and da 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 da. But I think it's less about the event, less about the workshop or the
Yeah.
learning journey, and it's more about the application.
Mm.
And it's more, about it could be something kind of small,
Yeah.
maybe not the big cool TED talk with the amazing, facilitator, but it's a tool that you need, or it's technology, or it's a program where
Yeah.
people are connected together, and a more seasoned person can help a more junior person, and it's just somebody making those connections that just help people do their jobs better and feel prepared to do their jobs. And I think what I mentioned before, the parts from the leadership development training are kind of trickling down, and I think a lot of the self reflection, the journaling, the looking within is becoming more popular. Like the crunchy things are becoming more the norm, which I
Yeah.
love. It's like, yeah,
Same.
let's talk about our feelings. Let's journal it out. So we're not, dog eat dog type of thing where
Yeah.
I'm a human, you're a human. Let's all kind of figure out our stuff together. So I would say less like razzle dazzle of the event and more introspection, more kind of getting us, if you think about Maslow's, everybody likes to talk about Maslow's
Always.
hierarchy. I'm a big fan too, but getting to that kind of self-actualization of the tippy top of
Yeah.
the pyramid of our needs, when this need is met and the basic needs are met, and when everything is developed, just becoming more of a well-rounded person who is more, happy with their lives, more they can communicate with the people around them, and then they show up to work as their best self, as the best self that they can be in that moment.
Love that. It's so funny. I hate when they call it crunchy too. Like when they're like, "Oh, that's like the hippy dippy stuff." I'm like, "Your feelings? Your feelings, the thing that actually like you have
Yeah.
to regulate in the workplace, the thing that like drives a lot of you, the unconscious part of you, like that's the crunchy part." Like, no, you really do have to look internally a lot to be able to even want to begin developing. Like, how can you
Mhm.
even talk about being different and evolving if you're not first asking yourself, "Where am I currently?" You know?
Mhm.
So, I
Mhm.
love that that feeling, the journaling, the self-reflection is becoming a more bigger part of L&D because that self-reflection I feel like has been missing. Like, we had this weird thing
Mhm.
at work maybe 10 years ago, and I feel like you also probably observed this, where we were just, like, dropping off all our personal baggage at the door and then just, like, going to work and acting like everything was fine, and I think COVID
Mhm.
really uncovered things are not fine, and it's, like,
Mhm.
okay for you to not be okay at work, but that even that, I feel like we're turning back on that now too. So it's just been interesting to observe this like less robotic approach to work, where it did feel like when I started my career, I felt like a robot, like go to work, happy face, end work, everything's not great, like, you know? So I
Mhm.
think that is really interesting and watching that trickle into L&D is super cool. The other thing that keeps coming up and it is in your framework a lot is trust. Like
Mhm.
how trust is like such a currency. Minda Harts wrote a book on it. I had her on the pod last season. It's such an interesting thing. Like, how do you build trust as we're talking about what's new in L&D? How do you build trust even as a learning team when we're potentially brand new to an organization or we have to rebuild the trust that seems to be lost sometimes? How do you approach that?
Yeah, that's not an easy one, but I would say, getting as much clarity as you can, because maybe there was an issue because something didn't work because we didn't have all the facts and figures. So going out, talking to people, connecting with people, asking questions, putting on that curiosity hat, knowing your audience, because yes, you have to collaborate and ultimately make sure that your stakeholders are happy, but as an L&D person and as an L&D team, you're really there to advocate for the employee. You're there to dig into what they really need, not just what the leaders think they need. So, that's going around and talking to people and asking people what they're missing, what they're confused about, and then once you get more of that information, then you put that in your tool belt. And when it comes to building the trust with the rest of the organization, you can really start to build that with storytelling, sharing your goals, sharing your wins,
Yeah.
and really getting people aligned around what you're trying to do. And it's because I think the mismatch happens when the team is off doing something and rolling something out, and you have people grumbling like, "Wow, they're doing this. This really
Yeah.
should be." Da, 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 da." So once you like win hearts and minds with that, and that's where I think marketing and communications comes in, which is also my background. I say that I'm at the intersection of learning, marketing, and writing, but learning without the marketing part, you're not really painting the full picture. So you have to kind of get out there and brand yourself and make people understand why it's important.
Yeah. It really is like trust is it's a currency of everything at work. And like
Yeah,
the place where I think we struggle the most as HR and in L&D is like we don't have the trust of the employee a lot of times that we're
yeah,
doing something that matters. And so I think if you're always explaining like the why to them, then they know, okay, I can trust this person. I mean, at its core, like a lot of work is just like human stuff, right? Like you you referenced Tim Slade's point about the human element, like stakeholder management, pushing back, managing expectations. Like, first, do you think that's like a teachable thing or is this really a personality thing? And if you want to tell people about Tim Slade, please do, because I had to do some Googling as well.
yeah. Tim Slade, he had a post. He's a learning professional and thought leader, and he was saying that in our industry, it's not just knowing the
Mm,
background. It's not knowing the learning philosophy. We all can cite the foundations that we have, and we're adhering to those principles. It's the stuff that's in between is really kind of what makes a learning professional or team successful, and that's the human element, and that's the element that you don't
mm,
necessarily get taught when you're doing your association of talent development certification. The reasoning behind how you're creating something, but it's the negotiation. It's how you're showing up, and are you, just kind of scared of getting in trouble, or are you willing to push a little bit and say, "Yes, but why?" Or "What are we trying to solve here?" Or, "Is this really what we need to be focusing on?" Or "How does this tie back to the
yeah.
learning strategy or the business goals?" And while I do think some people are more, you know, kind of out there and willing to push back, they could be that naturally. I do think that is something that can come with experience, with age, let's say. Maybe
Yeah.
somebody who's been in the field a little bit longer. So that is definitely something that can be taught, but it is a delicate balance between um, being argumentative and being
Yeah.
collaborative. And
Yeah.
that's where communication skills come in. One of my favorite topics to talk about is, how do we make it a win-win, and how do we get what we want to get across while, making the other person feel like we're not dismissing them. So it's definitely something that people can learn, but it is helpful when there's an atmosphere where that's even possible, where the back and forth is possible. But if you're in a workplace where it's like, here's the directive, do it, XYZ, that's not going to be as easy. But if you have a little bit of that space and grace to say, hey, is there anything you want to add? Is there anything, you're feeling, just giving people that room to have that conversation will help.
That room isn't always made, though. You and I both know this. I think it's like, it's such an interesting thing because, like, the question, is it teachable or a personality thing, is like such a loaded ass question for me to ask because I do think, like, sure, everyone is capable of learning things, but I do think some personalities are just more easily adjusted to do the things that matter. Like they understand collaboration, they care about stakeholder management, they know how to push back effectively. And that doesn't mean other people can't learn it, but I always joke that like I love conflict because I came from an environment where we would resolve conflict in a healthy way at our dinner table.
Mhm.
Not everybody loves
Okay.
that. So
Wow.
like when I'm dealing
Yeah.
with conflict at work, I'm like, oh, like I have to remember the human element. Not everybody loves this. It does make some people uncomfortable. Like, how do we get through this in a healthy way instead of a harmful way? But I know that's like not everyone's thing. And I think if I went to like people I know today at work and be like, do you want to like learn really good conflict management skills? I think some of my employees might be like, no, I actually hate conflict and I'm like not interested in learning it. So it's like such a fascinating thing to think about the human element of all of this because at its core, like we are just humans trying to figure things out. And it makes me think about, as humans, we also make mistakes. And I have made so
Mhm.
many mistakes professionally, personally in my life, and I've tried to learn from them. But what are some of the most common mistakes you see learning professionals make that maybe they don't even realize they're making?
Yeah, and I think it could also be applied to other kind of support services as we're talking about, marketing, communications. But I think people that go into learning and development want to be of service. They want
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
help.
Yes.
So
Yes.
maybe that tendency to people please,
Mm,
and to please the immediate stakeholders, and that can lead to design by committee,
mm,
and maybe
my
something that
nightmare.
you know it isn't the best solution because as you said, a lot of people are scared of conflict. That's why I'm so interested in conflict resolution because I've always hated it, been bad at it, and I'm like, can we just be best friends and get along and whatever? So
Everybody
that's
would be cool.
yeah, everybody be cool. Like, let's be best friends and have fun and la 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 and go
Yeah.
skipping in the woods
Yeah.
together and make some
Yeah.
good decisions. But that's why I'm so fascinated by it because I was introduced to this world where if you're bad at something, you could learn how to fix it. So,
Mm,
just because you are interested in something doesn't mean you're good at it. It could be because it's really, really hard for you. So, that's what I would say is being a people pleaser, it could be a big, big mistake rather than kind of owning your expertise and trusting yourself. And I think a lot of people in those roles, they want to do a good job. They want to have good feedback in their performance review. So a lot
yeah.
of times they end up just kind of doing what they're told rather than, um, you know, leaning into more of that pushing back, collaborating, asking questions, doing something that will kind of elongate the meeting because as L&D professionals, we're always really wary of subject matter experts and their time and executives but if we're saying, okay, wait, I have questions, like 10 more minutes, 20 more minutes, they might feel like they're not succeeding in the moment. So what I would tell learning and development professionals would just be trust yourself more, believe in your expertise and know that your opinion is just as valid.
Yeah. The people pleasing is so funny because I think I'm the anti people pleaser. I always joke I'm an aspiring people pleaser because I'm like, I could care less if all of you are happy about this. I mean, like, I obviously care about it. Sorry. It's like, but when it comes to L&D, if you're trying to make everybody happy, I just think that's like a losing battle. That's a battle
Mhm.
you're gonna lose because you're never gonna make everyone happy, right? And
Right.
designing and design by committee means potentially you actually don't get the outcome you need from the learning thing. So I love that you're calling that out as common mistakes because I've made those and I've learned
Mhm.
from them so intensely. So making sure that you always trust yourself. Like I do feel like there's this trend at work where everyone tries to make HR second guess ourselves. Where I'm like, am
Mhm.
I being gaslit by everybody all day long that like I'm not actually good at this job? Because I think I actually am good at this job, but like what's going on here? So I think just remembering like you are the expert. It's okay for you to say, like, I'm the expert and here's how we're gonna do this. You still need to collaborate with others, but you don't have to just, give into the will of everybody, which I think is a losing battle, honestly. Um, I love that you called those out. Mistakes I've absolutely made. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
Since we're talking new and future, I have to ask this question. If an org is starting from zero, like they have no learning person, maybe it's one HR person, maybe it's two HR people, and they have like no idea of like a learning function, don't even know. What is the single most important thing they should get right in year one?
Mhm. So I would say figure out what data you have, figure out what data you want to start collecting. What are you going to measure to see if an initiative or the strategy at large is successful? Create a framework. Who's a stakeholder? What's their role? How do they contribute? How do you hold yourself accountable as a learning team? From there, you kind of create a language and a common vision. um, Definitely create a focus group with the learners because, as I said, it's not just about leadership and stakeholders. You really are an advocate for the employees. They are very important, and you're their voice, and you're there to make things easier for them while meeting business results and making business results happen. But you're really there to dig into the employee problems and
Yeah.
challenges and provide solutions. And then, from there you socialize, the plan and the options, provide a few helpful resources or opportunities. Don't try to do everything all at once, but just create something that will be helpful based on what you've learned, and make sure you have that feedback loop going with the stakeholders, with leadership, with the employees, with the data that you've collected, and hold yourself accountable to it.
Mm. I love that you talk about the language and a common vision, because so often I see people get started and the vision and the outcome they have is so different. And I'm like, no, no, no. You all need to be clear on what are we doing and why, and what is the vision and how
Mhm.
to get there. So those were such good tactical tips for people as they're getting started. And I think even like, okay, maybe it's not year one, but you're really like, okay, I want to like revolutionize my L&D team. I want to revolutionize learning and growth. Honestly, this is the perfect time for it because AI is disrupting our workplaces in such real time that there are so many things that could change for L&D professionals in the next year. That structure that you just laid out too is incredible for that. Figure out your data, make sure you are talking to people, have a shared language, like socialize it, have resources. Like I love that idea of how to do it even if you're not starting from zero. If you're trying to revolutionize it too, there's also an opportunity to completely change what we're doing. Um, I have to ask because this is the season of new. What is a belief you used to hold on to about L&D that you have changed your mind on?
So I've always been, pretty flexible because L&D is always changing and
Always.
adapting, and so it's like one time it's this, and now it's that, and this year it's
Tomorrow
this,
it's
and
different.
exactly. So,
Yeah.
but one thing I would say is, back in the day when I first started in the industry, maybe the belief that it has to be complicated,
Mm,
that has to be, okay, I'm the learning and development person. I go off into my little lab and I create this year-long learning journey with these
mhm.
touch points and this collateral and this, marketing campaign. It doesn't always need to be all that. It can be sometimes, but it really is about impact and not just, this shiny kind of experience where people have fun, and fun is great, but it, it's really about what are the resources and tools that are going to help people in real time.
I love that you bring that up because I was just talking to an old coworker about, like, a learning program that we took a year to launch, and she was like, "Could you imagine if we worked on a learning program for a year today?" And I was like, "No, I could not. It does not need to be that complicated anymore. It can be,
No.
like, simple, small wins." And I also had to kinda unlearn that, so I love that you've changed your mind on that. Because same. Um, I've been wrapping with, like, our episode with all these, like, future thinking questions, but I have to ask. I keep saying I have to ask, like, obviously, I wrote these questions, I will be asking, right? I have to ask. No, I will be asking. But I do love asking a future question at the end too. What does the future of organizational learning actually look like? Where are we headed? Why am I
Hmm.
scared?
I know. Well, I talk a lot about this in the book. In chapter one, I kind of dive deep into the different
Out the
decades.
gate. You were like chapter 1 out the gate, I'm telling you this.
As a person who was plopped in the
Yeah,
workplace in the
yeah,
early 2000s with not much, I had an English literature background. I knew about Chaucer. I knew
yeah,
about Shakespeare. You know, and
yeah, 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 yeah,
my references for the workplace were like Office Space
yep,
and
yep,
just, pop culture references. So for me, it was very helpful to be like, what is happening? It was like this, now it's like that. So really kind of breaking it down and looking at how the pendulum has swung from year to year uh,
Mm,
was helpful to understand where we are and where we're going. So I would just remind people that it swings back and forth, it's if you look at the books and the thought leadership and the things that people were saying a decade or two ago to what they're saying now, know that there's a bit of push and pull. There's people who want to push things forward and make things more human centered, and then there's things that happen that can kind of impede that. So my hope is that we are going to more of a human centered place as AI comes in. We really lean into those power skills. We
yes.
really lean into our humanity as our competitive advantage.
Try.
We do things outside of work, outside of relying on learning and development. Everybody goes to therapy. Let's
Oh,
all go to
yes.
therapy.
I wish.
And really just level up ourselves as much as possible, evolve ourselves. That's where I see things going more to that self-actualization place, to
Yeah.
where we really, maybe we can't control everything outside of ourselves, but we can control our personal and professional development. And we really lean into that, and just go back to the basics and really just learn more about ourselves, learn more about our strengths and our competitive advantage over the robot.
So we can beat them. No,
Yeah,
I'm full of jokes today. No, but I love the idea of like the self-actualization, actually it becoming more human centered than ever. Like at a time where everyone's trying to shove AI down our throats, the
right.
idea that there's still things at our organization that are so human is like the most beautiful thing on earth.
Hmm.
I'm so glad we finally got time together today. I think you'll be back. I feel like we have more topics to get into. For people who are looking to get in touch with you, this is a bit I now do. What's the best way for people to reach you?
Message me on LinkedIn.
That's the answer every single guest gives. And I'm like,
Really?
do I just stop asking this question? Yeah, it's like, now it's a recurring bit, but I love
Yeah.
that. They can find you on LinkedIn. Where can they get your book?
Amazon, Ingram Spark, bookshop.org.
We love bookshop.org in this
Yeah,
house. We're big
yeah,
fans.
absolutely. And my website, if you want to do all that, everybody-be-cool. And yeah, just come and say hi.
Hanan, this has been so, so fun. I think you'll be back to the pod. I can't wait to see how we change the world of learning at an organization. This is like such a powerful topic. Seriously, like I think it's the biggest challenge we are going to face as HR leaders in the next few years. Like I'm facing it now, but I feel like it's only going to continue. So I'm honored that you spent an hour with us giving us your thoughts and how to actually tackle this. And you'll be back so that you and I can talk about non attachment next season.
Yes, we're going to be so non-attached. It's going to be
So
amazing.
non-attached, you wouldn't even be able to reach any of us. Thank you again.
Thank you. So much fun.
Yay. Thanks for tuning in. Keep up with all the latest HR resources by subscribing on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you listen. And if you love I Hate It Here, tell an HR friend. I'll see you next time.